Welcome to Satan, Hellenistic tragic hero of free will. As depicted in John Milton's Paradise Lost, today we are going to take a look at a contradictory and extremely debated point of view. We are investigating Satan as a Hellenistic tragic hero. Hellenistic tragic heroes have characteristics that are based on Aristotle's viewpoint of what a tragic hero is. Hellenistic heroes' qualities are viewed based on individuality, self-determination, and physical courage that the individuals endure alone against what seems to be impossible odds against them. The Hellenistic hero has immense physical strength, is superior to all competitors, and victory or defeat is upon the individual Hellenistic hero's shoulders. This victory or defeat must also come to a rest. The Hellenistic hero also must not or does not have to be morally correct. The Hellenistic hero's traits can be explained by philosopher Aristotle. These characteristics are that the character must come from a noble birth, possess a fatal flaw, the fate of the character is controlled by the flaw, they must be physically or spiritually wounded by experiences, suffers more than he deserves, bears no responsibility for the flaw, only for the actions influenced by the flaw. They are imperfect or human, despite noble nature, and the downfall raises pity or fear in the audience. The actions of the character must also bring about a self-awareness or self-knowledge in the character. We are going to analyze each of these characteristics and how they apply to Satan in Paradise Lost. We have several experts today on the show that are going to put their expert opinion and point of view on the topic. We will also look at some of the expert excerpts from Paradise Lost and analyze these to show how they are relevant to showing Satan as the Hellenistic tragic hero. There are a lot of misconceptions about what a tragic hero can be defined as, and this causes much controversy on the subject that the show today is covering. The misconceptions derive from which use of tragic hero are being discussed. The confusions come from defining a biblical tragic hero or Hellenistic tragic hero. Our first expert is William R. Herman, who is a published author of National Council of Teachers of English for the journal College English. He's going to give us a great description about the difference between a biblical and a Hellenistic tragic hero.
Hello, everyone. I am William R. Herman, and I'm the author of Heroism in Paradise Lost. I realize that by saying Satan is the tragic hero, some may be offended. There are great differences between the tragic hero, Hellenistic hero, and a tragic biblical hero, so let me explain. There are several characteristics when identifying a tragic hero in a story. These characteristics consist of merit, honor, proper reward obtained, the leadership, high-ranking birth, brave, ingenious, and courageous, amongst other character traits. The biblical hero is not to be identified by any of these characteristics, although he may possess some of them. His main characteristic is not physical strength, but moral strength, permitting him to be obedient to God when all others reject God, or the end to be obedient. The Hellene obtains glory through defiance. The biblical hero obtains glory through submission.
So as we look into Satan as a tragic hero, we are looking at the Hellenistic point of view of a tragic hero. Satan does possess this characteristic easily. After all, he was created by God and in God's image. He was at one time God's right-hand man, and even after his demise was the lead guy in charge of hell. What exactly does noble birth mean? Well, let's take a look at that. Noble birth usually means someone born to a member of a royal family. I'm not sure how much more royal you can get since he was created by God. Secondly, someone with nobility is looked up to by others and seen as a leader. Satan was the leader of the fallen angels in Paradise Lost. We will bring back William R. Herman to explain how exactly Satan is considered of noble birth.
Satan most definitely has a distinct nobility about him that all can agree upon. The reason I say that is that God, or next to God, before the creation of the sun, he is the most magnificent of archangels. He, a brave and ingenious general in the battle in heaven, in the face of sin and death and chaos, he shows unrivaled courage. From the Hellenic point of view, he is defiant rather than disobedient.
We do have the Almighty God with us today as well to examine some of the writings of Milton in Paradise Lost.
Yes, it is known that I created all in my image, including Satan. I looked at him like a son before I created my son. Milton concurs with this in Paradise Lost. In Paradise Lost, Book 1, Milton writes,
Favored of heaven so highly, to fall from the Creator and transgress his will.
When Milton wrote this, he was speaking about how Satan was my right-hand man and was favored by all, including me. But because I created him in my image, I also gave him free will to make decisions for either good or evil, and he took this free will to question and act out, which ultimately got him and the others that followed him cast out of heaven. This constitutes that Satan was born out of nobility, because he was created by my hand, and also constitutes that others followed him because they looked up to him, thus giving him a nobility.
Now we are going to bring in another expert to discuss nobility of Satan in Paradise Lost. The next expert is a published author for American Association of Teacher of Italian in the journal Italia. Her name is Anne Paolucci, and she is the author of Dante's Satan and Milton's Byronic Hero. She is going to discuss the creation of Satan by God.
Satan is definitely of noble birth. God created him. However, his creation is different from simply being born into a royal family because of this. Satan is the lowest rung on the ladder of spiritual beings, somewhere between the human and the animal. He is pure instinct, pure appetite. His very essence of bestiality and antithesis of divinity. Not animal, not human. Outside the natural order of created beings. The bestiality of Satan is a result of his fall, not from human goodness, but from divine goodness. Basically, Satan was not human from the start, but came from divine goodness. Satan was definitely looked up to by other fallen angels, who also show that he is noble, because others view him as a leader. I believe that they do this because he is a brave and ingenious general in the battle in heaven. In the face of sin and death and chaos, he shows unrivaled courage. In order to be a leader of others, he possesses courage, which they find as leaders' role and easy to follow. The way Satan is depicted in Milton's Paradise Lost shows that he is admirable in his determination and his depth of feeling, and his sense of loyalty to those who depend on him and look up to him for guidance and reassurance. Milton's Satan is often eloquent.
Satan possesses an evident fatal flaw. This can also be called hamartia or hamartia. Satan seems to have more than one fatal flaw, however. The most traditional fatal flaw is hubris, which is an excessive pride exhibited by the character, and this is also the main flaw that we see in Satan. Satan also shows that he has an immense loyalty to God. These fatal flaws ultimately lead to the Hellenistic tragic hero's demise. Fate is controlled by the flaw, and the flaw causes physically or spiritually wounding experiences for him. Fate seems to control Satan from the beginning because God ultimately allows for Satan's pride and his overwhelmingly loyalty to him to allow for him to express the free will that he was created with. Satan has a reversal of fortune or propitia because of his flaw that sends him from being God's right-hand man in heaven to hell, with all the others who have followed the lead of Satan in expressing free will, while exhibiting pride and abundance loyalty they have for the Creator God. Satan is definitely injured spiritually when he is cast from heaven, and this was not entirely deserved because God himself placed the temptation of evil, and also created Satan with the ability to choose. The suffering that Satan faces has greater meaning that is related to his flaw, because he is unable to step away from his pride to see that his flaw created a good for all in the end, when the sins of mankind can be forgiven with repentance, and that the loyalty he showed to God also set the example for all those created to follow. Now we will talk to our experts and look at some excerpts from Paradise Lost that show these downfalls. Our next expert is published author for college literature in the journal College Literature. His name is James S. Baumlin, and he is the author of Epic and Allegory in Paradise Lost, Book 2.
Satan became a fallen angel due to his pride and the fact that he worshipped God and was extremely loyal to God. He simply could not comprehend why if he was created in such a great image, why he would have faults. The way Milton writes about Satan, we can see that we need to look at Satan in a different light. To understand Satan, we must consider how this fallen angel embodies the old heroism, the pride of military heroism, and of pagan epic, and how the heroism is qualified and divided by other generic modes, by Satan's role, for example, a tragic hero, or as an allegorical personification of pride. Satan also seems to let fate guide because of his pride and allows envy to take over at times. He is envious of his creator God and also God's son. This is shown in Book 5 of Paradise Lost by Milton. He seems to make reference that Satan is preliminarily the envious one, that his envy against the Son of God explains how his flaws leads to revolt in heaven, and Satan began thrown out of heaven. Pride is all of Satan's great vice, but envy and revenge are its inviolable products. Satan's pride is guided by faith and ultimately is the Hellenistic tragic hero downfall, and that Satan's pride leads to both envy and revenge. Satan definitely has the most common tragic fall of pride. Satan is disputedly an embodiment of pride, is equally indisputable that he both experienced the originates
I have
all
been
the
Satan
other
bright
vices.
and fallen angels since the war in heaven. I have been Satan exhibits extreme pride, which can easily be construed as his ultimate downfall. I'm going to discuss and examine some of the excerpts from Paradise Lost. Milton has several passages throughout Paradise Lost that address the tragic flaw of pride, also known as hubris. The first instance of this is shown in Book 1, line 263, when Satan says,
Better to reign in hell than
when
serve in
Satan
heaven.
stated this, he wholeheartedly believed that God could either be defeated or at least have some victory that would come out of it. He shows that even after being defeated, he still sees that he is powerful and does not believe that he can truly be cast down completely. It is also shown in textual evidence of Milton that Satan is doomed from the start and has no responsibility for possessing his flaw, but only has a responsibility of his actions because of his flaw. When
Oh, had
Milton
his
writes,
powerful destiny ordained me, some inferior angel, had stood then happy. No unbounded hope
this
had
quote
raised
shows
ambition.
that God has made Satan so that he had no choice but to act the way that he did. Satan expresses that God ultimately had the responsibility for
Another
all things.
expert on the topic of Satan's fatal flaw of pride is published author for the Classical Association of the Middle West and South for the journal The Classical Journal. His name is Robert M. Boltwood. Mr. Boltwood is going to go into detail about how the pride is the ultimate fatal flaw because it causes Satan to
Satan's
question God.
primarily motive is a deep inner desire to arrange his punishment of being cast out of heaven. Pride is ultimately what caused the concern of this motive. The very pride and attitude of opportunism which caused Satan to question and challenge superior authority of God in the later despotic realm have been seriously set back. His passion of revenge springs from his very nature as a pride and arrogant being who cannot tolerate being thwarted or disciplined by a superior. Satan simply exhibits that pride, his fall, is determined by faith, and his actions of envy, passion, of his belief and revenge all are
Satan is a
guided by
treacherous
faith.
soul who is jealous and does not feel the need to follow the doctrines. He also speaks eloquently. All of these are exhibitions of his pride. Another quote from Satan that exhibits all of these traits is found in Book 1, line 254 through 255.
The
when
mind
Satan
is
says,
its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell or a hell
Satan
of a
also
heaven.
seems to evaluate his failures easily with his mind. Satan also shows that he has let his pride be determined by fate when he states in Book 2, lines 463 through 466
While I
that
abroad, through all the coasts of dark destruction, seek deliverance for us all. This enterprise none shall
Satan
partake
feels a
in.
responsibility and need to exhibit his pride and willingness to take action so that he can still hold on to his nobility, that others that look up to him and saw in him from before his fatal flaw took him down
Satan by no
spiritually.
means is perfect, which allows the audience of Paradise Lost to identify with him, even though he comes from and exhibits an outstanding quality of greatness. Due to Satan having imperfections such as excessive pride, his downfall seems probable and not only determined by fate. Satan's downfall also allows the audience to have pity or fear of him. Because of the imperfections that he has, he can be seen in the audience themselves. This allows the audience to have the feeling that Satan's demise was undeserved because the audience feels the fear and can identify with the hero's thoughts or actions. They feel that this could have happened to them because they are not
When
perfect.
God punishes Satan and all the other fallen angels by turning them into serpents because Satan was successfully in causing the fall of humanity,
While he
Milton
stood
writes,
expecting their universe shout and high applause to fill his ear, when contrary he hears on all sides from innumerable tongues a dismal universe hiss, the sound of public
this allows for
scorn.
the audience to feel pity for Satan, because no one wants to feel pity like they're being publicly scorned by anyone, nor do they want to feel the loss of what they once had or what they once were looked up for. The audience is able to relate to Satan because they have the connection with committing sin and possibly not getting into heaven unless they
Our next
repent.
expert is going to talk about how Satan is viewed by the audience that reads Paradise Lost differently. He is a published author for the American Philosophical Society in the journal Proceedings of the American Philosophical Society. His name is John M. Stedman, and his work in this journal is titled The Idea of Satan as a Hero of Paradise
Whenever
Lost.
someone reads a story, they begin relating to the characters within the story, especially one who exhibits a major character flaw that the audience can relate to. Satan is easily related to because he isn't perfect and eludes the character flaw of pride, which some can relate to, causing a pity or fear for Satan. When everyone relates in a different way and will see or view the character differently based on the reader's own individual life experiences. To one, the devil is consistently evil and consistently absurd. To another, the devil is progressively evil and essentially tragic. To others, the portrait is a mosaic of complementary or incompatible qualities. Basically, everyone is going to have a different viewpoint on Satan throughout the story, and feel differently based on the individual and how they relate to Satan and his tragic flaw, and how they perceive his punishment and how it pertains to the reader's own
In this
life
show, we have
lessons.
analyzed thoroughly how Satan is a Hellenistic tragic hero because he exhibits the characteristics of what Aristotle believed were needed in order to be a Hellenistic tragic hero. We analyzed quotes in Paradise Lost and how they related to each part of what characteristics a Hellenistic tragic hero possesses, and we have had 5 separate experts thus far explain based on the expertise that Satan is a Hellenistic tragic hero and why based on the characteristics he possesses. We showed that Satan was born of noble birth and upheld nobility. We also exhibited that Satan possesses the fatal flaw of hubris, or excessive pride, which controls fate. We also explained how Satan was wounded spiritually by his experiences, and that his wounds from this are never entirely cleansed because of his fatal flaw. We also took a look at how he was purified or punished more than he probably deserved, because not only was he kicked out of heaven, but he was also publicly scorned and unsuccessful in trying to help the other fallen angels, as well as not only him himself being punished to the extreme of being turned into a serpent, but so were all the others that looked up to him. We looked at the fact that Satan bore no responsibility for his flaw and only for his actions, because God was responsible for the capability of him possessing his flaw and making decisions because of his flaw. God gave him the ability of free will, which allowed it for an increase of self-awareness and self-knowledge, allowing his downfall to be ultimately because he had a choice and free will to make that choice. We also examined how the audience can relate to Satan because he is not perfect, and how this relation to Satan causes the audience to have pity or fear of Satan. Now, what else could we cover to close this out? Oh, I know. Let's look at Milton and some of the reasons that he may have written about Satan in such a contradictory way. For this, we will need to bring in another expert. This expert is a published author for the Johns Hopkins University Press in the journal ELH. His name is Louis L. Martz, and he is the author of Paradise Lost, Princes of
Milton's
Exile.
thoughts when he wrote Paradise Lost came from a political standpoint. Milton's work as secretary for foreign tongues in Cromwell's government had plunged him into the fierce realities of political controversy, and he had expended his eyesight composing long defenses of the English people who had dared to execute their king and create a commonwealth. Milton's thoughts, because of his actually can be looked at a parallel of how Satan has become an outcast in Paradise Lost. Milton's epic came to be composed first in an atmosphere of imminent political failure, and then of total political disaster. Due to Milton's own experiences in life, he was able to write Paradise Lost so that the audience could have a reaction to Satan based on life experiences that they were part of. Milton wrote this poem because of his life experiences. Thus, doubly exiled from the community of men, first by his total blindness and then by his political isolation, Milton wrote his poem of exile. Due to Milton's own life experiences, he was able to convey the message of exile so that the audience could really believe in and feel for what Satan went through in Paradise Lost. To end this, I just have one more thing to say briefly. Certainly, it is true that Satan and his hosts are permeated with the poet's sympathy, for the poet knows what exile is, and he knows too that the first spontaneous, inevitable response to defeat is bitterness, dismay, desperation, frustrated anger, hatred of the victor, and emotional refusal to submit or yield. He has dramatized these feelings and attitudes in Satan.